All right, so I went ahead and made that cut, and I just used an angle grinder with a blue wheel. And from the back piece, I just cut off that strip, and that shows how poorly I cut it the first time. I could have done a lot better with that. So I've got a nice straight cut here. I do have a fold over underneath here, so I'm going to have to clean up that underside edge. And then this is the rear piece, so I just had that little strip that came off of this. And then this was that portion of the touring car body that I took off, and that's where that rear door would have mounted. So about a foot in length. And what's going to happen when this piece gets attached back here, I'm going to have about a 2-inch longer body than stock. And I figured I had it set up originally. I had some other marks on here. I had some holes that I had drilled in this piece. And I originally had like a 5-inch extension on it. And I just didn't like the way that looked. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a big guy. I was trying to give myself a little extra room. But with it being that much, I tried 4 inches. And that still, to me, looked a little bit disproportionate. So I've got about 2 extra inches in here. And I think that still looks close to stock. That stock look that I'm going for with the body. And then it's going to give me 2 inches more leg room, and I think that'll be good. Because this is the rear of the touring car section, there's a little bit different angle here, so I think that'll also help with a little more space inside. So what I'm going to do on the back of these, I got to clean these up. I've got a pretty sharp edge here, and I need that smooth to put my clamps in. So I'm going to grab a file. I'll go ahead and get that cleaned up, and then I'll go ahead and clamp it together with some sheet metal clamps. All right, so I've got the 2 pieces going back together here, and I did some tack welds here, and I forgot to start the video. So I've got the tacks here. Took me a little bit of playing around with the welder to get the right temperature down. So I've got the clamps going the rest of the way up, and a little thick up top here, so I'm going to play around with that a little bit more before I do the final weld here. But when I lay my straight edge across on the inside of the panel, I'm doing really well. I've got a pretty flat section from here to here, maybe raised a little bit in the middle, but that's all right. I'm going to have to do a little bit of cleanup there anyway. So these little clamps that I'm using, these happen to be a Harbor Freight item, but there's other companies that sell them. So it's a clamp with a solid with a slit cut in it, and then it's got this little insert that goes in. So what you do is you put your pieces of sheet metal, one on each side like that, and then you clamp it down. And then that gives you the spacing that's the thickness of this little piece here. So lets you hold it apart. You got your spacing in there for your weld to go in. That's what it looks like on the back side. So these are really handy. I think they sell them, or at least they did sell them at Harbor Freight in an 8-pack, but they work out really well for this type of a butt joint on sheet metal. So I'm going to go ahead and get some tacks in between these. I'll probably do a couple more here, a few here, and then I'm going to work on just getting this joint here pulled together a little bit more. I'm not going to worry too much about this section right at the end, because again, I've got that replacement panel that's going to go in place and give me a new bottom edge here, and that comes up a little bit above the bottom of the door. So this part here is going to get cut away, and replaced anyway with a solid piece running front to almost all the way to the back, and then of course that new corner. So I just wanted to show how those clamps are in place, and I'll go ahead and get a few tacks put in and come back and show you the panel with the clamps off. Alright, so here it is tacked together. And if I leave it this way, I got a little bit of work to do on the seam. It's pulled in just a little bit, and so I think probably what I would do if I leave it that way is I'll go ahead and I'd clean everything up and then probably take the door out and just work the side in that area on the English wheel a little bit to massage that back into place. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out again here. I think I'm still long, and as I did all my preliminary measuring, I thought I was going to come out 2 inches longer, and the spot that I'm measuring from is right at that hole in front of the front door, the one closest to the front of the door. And then I'm measuring to about that seam point right here. And as I have it clamped together now, I'm at 48 inches instead of 46 inches. And the area that I think looks too long is this spot right here. So I think what I'm going to do is it'll be a waste of my tack welding there, but I think I'm going to just clean that up a little bit, go ahead and cut that apart, and then take out 2 inches along my seam there, and then pull that in closer together. I just got to decide if I'm going to take it out of the side toward the door or the side away from the door, and part of that'll depend on how well I can get that top bead to match up. So that's the plan. I'm going to think about it here a little bit and see what I end up doing.